Yes, welcome everyone. Cannabis news with Joe Klare for April 10th, 2018. Thank you for checking out the show. Of course, you find every episode of this show at marijuanatimes.org. It is presented by the Marijuana Times. You also find a bunch of great articles by a bunch of great writers covering the cannabis community and industry and beyond. marijuanatimes.org. You can go find us over there. And everything you need to know about cannabis, the cannabis industry, and community, all that. Go check it out and share. Easily shareable with your social media networks, the videos and the articles. So help us spread the truth about cannabis that way. You can also find Cannabis News on Apple Podcasts. If you want the audio-only version of the show, search the Marijuana Times on Apple Podcasts. And share it that way. Leave us a comment. All that stuff. You know how all this stuff works. The ratings and the comments and the sharing and the liking and such. Talking about a bunch of great stuff today. Good news out of Connecticut, at least for progress when it comes to marijuana legalization there. Also, the FDA wants to hear from you about what you think about marijuana and marijuana legalization. We'll tell you how you can let the FDA know exactly what you think about cannabis. Also, there's a cannabis brand out in LA trying to get rid of the stoner stereotype. All of that is coming out. By the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we're just 10 days away from 420. That's right. Can you believe it? It's like it was just last year we had 420, and it's coming up again. It's a great day. Of course, we'll be here doing the show, of course, because it is a weekday. Cannabis News with Joe Klare is brought to you by naturesidecannabis.com. Check out their organic, all-natural pesticides. Grow safe and poison-free. Don't use harmful chemicals. Be regulatory compliant in the state that you're growing in. So get those organic, all-natural pesticides and the expertise of those at naturesidecannabis.com. Site is spelled CIDE. Naturesidecannabis.com, a proud sponsor of the Marijuana Times show. Now, Cannabis News, of course. They've been here since the beginning, and they're awesome for that. First story comes from marijuanatimes.org. Connecticut House Appropriations Committee advances a cannabis legalization bill. That's right. Some good legalization news out of Connecticut. The House Appropriations Committee advanced a bill last week which will lead to eventually legalizing and regulating a recreational cannabis market. Now, if you're wondering what that means, eventually leading to, well, House Bill 5394, which passed the committee with a vote of 27 to 24, if it was to be passed by the House and the Senate in Connecticut, it wouldn't directly legalize cannabis. It would instead require the Office of Policy and Management to develop a plan to legalize and regulate retail sales of cannabis. So basically, they're voting on telling another agency to formulate a plan to then actually legalize recreational cannabis. That seems like a long way to go about it. Well, that's because it is. A lot of states, you just vote on it, and then it's legal, and it takes effect, and then the legislature regulates and sets up rules and stuff afterwards. But, again, this is, as more and more states legalize, the states that are left, the processes will become longer and longer, which is why they haven't legalized already. The states that it was easiest to do it in are the ones legalizing first. The states are going to be the hardest are going to be last. So if it takes years upon years upon years for the last few states to legalize cannabis, do not be surprised about that. Bridgeport Mayor Joe Ganim is running for a Democratic nomination for governor of Connecticut. He said, quote, a legal regulated recreational marijuana industry will launch a new industry in Connecticut, create thousands of jobs, and produce hundreds of millions of needed annual tax revenue for the state. Some lawmakers are opposed to the bill, however, because it also requires the development of a regulating body to oversee legalization, which they claim the state doesn't have the money to do. Of course, the tax revenue from legal marijuana would more than make up for that, and do so in a quick, a hasty fashion, and make up that money and more. This next story is from Forbes.com. Feds want input on marijuana reclassification. The United World Health Organization is set to launch a review of the current international classification of marijuana, THC, cannabidiol, and other related compounds and preparations, and wants input from other member nations. So the U.S. Food and Drug Administration It is asking interested persons to submit comments that can inform the country's position on the issue before it weighs in with the UN. You have until April 23rd to leave a comment on regulations.gov. So far, there's 959 comments. We'll check out some of them in a second. But basically, as the article from Tom Angel over at Forbes pointed out, they want input from people about marijuana, and then they'll use that input, hopefully, in a not disingenuous fashion. They won't censor. They won't cut out all the stuff they don't like, and then they say, well, here's 12 people that wrote in and said they hate marijuana, so we're going to go with that. Hopefully, all this is on the up and up. But you have until April 23rd to leave a comment at regulations.gov. This is linked in the description of this video, as are all stories that I talk about. Basically, it says the Food and Drug Administration is requesting interested persons to submit comments concerning abuse potential, actual abuse, medical usefulness, trafficking, and the impact of scheduling changes on availability for medical use of 5 drug substances. These comments will be considered in preparing a response from the United States to the World Health Organization, the WHO, regarding the abuse, liability, and diversion of these drugs. WHO will use this information to consider whether to recommend that certain international restrictions be placed on these drugs. This notice requesting comments is required by the Controlled Substances Act. So again, you can leave your comment. Like I said, the link is in the description of this video. According to Tom Angel, the WHO's Expert Committee on Drug Dependence will meet in June to discuss marijuana's classification, and will then make pre-review recommendations to the UN Secretary General about conducting a more in-depth analysis. So in that way, it's very similar to the first story. They want to have comments so they can make, the FDA wants comments so they can make a comment to the WHO, and then they're going to have a meeting, and they're going to discuss the classification, and they're going to make pre-review recommendations to the UN Secretary General about conducting a more in-depth analysis. So there's many steps there. But as I said, I just hope that with all the people leaving comments, like I said, we'll get to a few here in a minute. By the way, this was at 959 comments a few hours ago, and it's still there. I don't know how often they update this. I don't know if it's obviously not in real time. I'm sure there's been comments made in the last couple hours. Everybody is pumping out this link. And this information for a comment I saw normal. They have a couple 100,000 Twitter followers. They tweeted out earlier. So there's people coming to leave comments. Again, I guess, I don't know if they curate these comments. I don't know if they call through them and get rid of what they don't want. I don't know if they're going to censor them when they give the results to the WHO. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But some of the comments left at regulations.gov so far, Jim Barry in South Charleston, West Virginia. This has helped me deal with my bipolar issues as well as depression. Alleviates my back pain caused by my time in the service. Pot has not caused me to ever try another drug. Matter of fact, I did not even drink alcohol since I was in my 30s. I'm 45 years old and think this plant should be legal. I've always worked a full-time job as a service tech in the professional field. There's enough scientific proof of what this plant can do. Legalize now. So that was comment number 959, according to the list here on regulations.gov. Like I said, I don't know how often they update this. We'll check out one more. This person didn't leave a name. They said marijuana should be removed from the controlled substances. There is significant evidence showing that marijuana can treat various medical issues without much side effects, such as opioids. Recent scientific studies indicate that opioid prescription is down in states where medical marijuana is legalized. All these things are, of course, true and things we've covered here on the show. Apart from medical benefits, governments around the world spend billions of dollars on the war on drugs, put young people behind bars, especially people of color. War on drugs is a waste of time and money. Money should be spent educating people about the dangers of drugs, not on private prisons. All, again, good points, and hopefully all these good points will be used in the FDA's response to WHO. We know that the FDA is not hospitable in any way to marijuana or medical marijuana. If they were, they would have been studying medical marijuana for the last few decades. The marijuana would be able to go through the FDA approval process, but none of that happens. So I'm afraid the people that are making these decisions are not going to be so gung-ho about seeing all these great comments and saying, well, maybe we should tell the WHO that marijuana is cool and we're legalizing it, so everybody else should be able to legalize it, and that's fine. I mean, that's obviously what the comments would lead them. That's the conclusion the comments will lead them to come to, but we'll see. I'm skeptical. Again, I say this a lot, I know. I try not to be so cynical about these things. So I'm not going to be cynical, but I'm going to be very skeptical until we see the result. This last story is from creativity-online.com. Cannabis brand MedMen wants to kill the stoner stereotype. MedMen is one of the largest cannabis retailers in California. They're experiencing a wave of demand in the wake of the new law. Their West Hollywood store is reported a 480% increase in revenue. Of course, the new law, of course, being recreational legalization in California. And, well, it's obviously having, major effect on the industry there. Riding that momentum, the company has introduced a new campaign, quote, "Forget Stoner," end quote, which seeks to shatter marijuana user stereotypes by featuring a variety of people, including a police officer, an ex-NFL player, a grandmother, and a teacher who use cannabis for reasons including, but not limited to, pain management. They've created the effort in-house. It features out-of-home billboards, wild postings, as well as new print publication Ember, a partnership with Paper Magazine. The quarterly will be devoted to cannabis culture and will feature open pot advocates. The campaign targets California and Nevada, which legalized recreational pot last year. Of course, this is obviously, a great idea. People who don't use cannabis have a very specific stereotype in mind when they think of someone who uses cannabis. And of course, they use the word stoner to kind of encompass all of those people. Now, in general, stereotypes are what they are. I mean, there's always going to be stereotypes surrounding marijuana, like the munchie stereotype. A lot of people get hungry when they use cannabis. That's just a fact, and that's why it's a stereotype. But people who don't have the perspective of being in the cannabis community and don't know cannabis users, it's easy for them to just lump everybody into one category and say, that's who that person is. And they don't realize, and they would be surprised, I would imagine, if they knew just how many people they interact with on a daily basis that use cannabis for social purposes, recreational purposes, medical purposes, whatever. Police, teachers, doctors, everybody. Everybody, all walks of life have people, if they're a large enough group, obviously, they have people in that group who use cannabis, and they still function just fine. Maybe they even do a video show called Cannabis News with Joe Klare on marijuanatimes.org, presented by the Marijuana Times. Maybe they do that. I don't know. It's just for you to decide. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the show. Like I said, keep liking, sharing, commenting on the videos. Find us on YouTube and on Facebook. Or just go to marijuanatimes.org and, of course, search us on Apple Podcasts as well. Thank you to naturesidecannabis.com for being a proud sponsor of the show. Check out the organic, all-natural pesticides, naturesidecannabis.com. Don't forget, with the hat, with the swag, get it in time for 420 maybe. MakeCannabisGreatAgain.com. And a portion of the proceeds go to fight for legalization. That's what we're doing here on this show 5 days a week. Help us spread the truth about cannabis and share the stuff you find on marijuanatimes.org with all of your social media networks. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the show. We'll see you next time on Cannabis News.